She ran like the night was swallowing her. Blood soaked her thighs. Her breath came sharp and shallow. One arm wrapped protectively around her swollen belly as branches clawed at her skin. The moon hung low, too bright, too silent, watching her flee the place that used to be home. Behind her, wolves howled, not wild ones, his. She stumbled on a root, fell hard onto one knee, and almost screamed. Her hand flew to her stomach. The baby kicked once, alive, stubborn, hers, and she forced herself up, teeth clenched against the pain. She didn't look back. She couldn't, because if she saw them, if she saw him, she might stop. And if she stopped, she would never run again. The wind carried their scent before their footsteps. Silver oil, wolf sweat, iron discipline. She ducked under a fallen tree and pressed herself into the frozen dirt, panting. Her skin burned. Her shift wouldn't hold much longer. The pain was ripping her in two. They were closing in. She could feel it. And she whispered through gritted teeth, "Please, not yet, just a little further." A twig snapped. She held her breath. A voice, sharp, male, cruel, cut through the trees. "Alpha says bring the pup. Leave the traitor if she slows you down." Her heart stopped. He wasn't looking for her. He was looking for the child, her child. The ache that bloomed in her chest then wasn't just fear. It was grief. Because she had once loved him. She had once stood beneath the moon and let him mark her, thinking it meant safety, thinking it meant forever. Another contraction hit, harder. She bit down on a scream and forced herself to move again, half crawling, half stumbling through the brush. Her nails tore open on the frozen bark, her vision blurred. The border had to be close. It had to be. She had memorized every path, every outpost. She had trained for this. But training didn't matter when blood ran down your legs and your mate wanted your pup but not you. The ground changed, softer, warmer. She looked up and saw it. The edge of the rogue line, a boundary carved into the land by scent and law. One step more, and she would be in exile, safe from the Alpha, unsafe from everything else. She didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and collapsed, her body curled, trembling, breath rattling. She curled her arms around her belly, protectively, desperately. "I'm here, little one," she whispered. "I'll keep you safe even if I die for it." Far behind her, a new howl rose, different from the others, deeper, angrier, and closer than it should have been. She closed her eyes. "Don't let it be him," she begged the dark. "Not yet." He had touched her like she was glass, not like a soldier, not like an orphan from the border towns, not like the last daughter of a disgraced bloodline. He had touched her like she was the first thing in his world that hadn't been soaked in violence. That's what made it worse. Raya still remembered the night he marked her. The room had smelled like pine and storm water. The fire crackled low in the hearth. Her hands had been shaking, not from fear, but from something older, deeper. The kind of ache a girl carries when she's never been seen until a man like him looks at her like she's his only moon. She'd worn white. A small thing. Simple. She hadn't wanted ceremony, hadn't cared for eyes or power or witness. Just him. Alpha Thorne. The beast everyone feared. The man she dared to believe in. "You sure?" He'd asked her softly that night, thumb brushing her throat. "If I mark you, there's no undoing it." She'd nodded. Not like a warrior, like a girl in love, and when his fangs pierced her neck, she had wept. Not from pain, from hope. The mark was silver when it formed. Not red, not gold, not the classic crescent. Silver meant one thing, a rare, old blood bond. It meant fate. For 3 days after, she'd felt like her body didn't belong to her anymore. Every heartbeat whispered his name. Every shift in the wind carried his scent. Her wolf purred beneath her skin, like it had finally found home. He hadn't pulled away either. He touched her more gently than ever, walked beside her at every council, laid awake with her in the hollow hour between midnight and dawn. She had trusted him with everything, even the parts of herself that no one else knew, even the child blooming quietly inside her. It hadn't been planned, the pregnancy. But when she told him, softly, shyly, eyes wide with wonder, he'd only stared. Not in anger, not in joy, just silence. Like something inside him had cracked open, and he was still deciding whether to kill it or let it live. And then he'd vanished. 2 days. No word, no command, no explanation. Just a hollow bed and a deeper ache. The pack told her he'd gone to handle border disputes. She didn't question it. She thought, he's just shocked. He'll come back. He did, but not for her. The whole pack had been summoned for a blessing, a unity ritual, they said, a ceremonial mark to honor peace with a rival clan. Raya had stood in the back, veil wrapped around her throat to hide the still-healing bite he had left. She thought she'd watch him mark some warrior's wrist, or offer a ceremonial cut to the moon altar. Instead, he stepped forward, took the rival Luna's hand, and bared his fangs. The second the other woman gasped, when Thorne's mark flared gold against her skin, Raya screamed. The sound tore through the gathering like a blade. She hadn't meant to. It just broke out of her. A raw, animal sound. The crowd turned. Her eyes locked with his. He froze. She saw it then. Guilt. Not confusion, not surprise. Guilt. Because he'd done it knowing she would see. She fled before he could come to her, but he hadn't tried anyway. That night, her wolf refused to shift. The mark on her neck dimmed. Not gone, just abandoned. A living scar. And the child inside her moved for the first time, as if to remind her, you're not alone, even when he leaves. She didn't cry, not until morning. And even then, it was silent. Tears against dirt. She left 3 nights later. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a blade, a cloak, and the cold truth. He had marked another, while her child carried his blood. Why? She never got the answer. Maybe it was politics. Maybe he'd been forced. Maybe he hadn't wanted her enough to fight the council. Maybe it was something darker. That he'd never wanted the pup in the first place. That he had planned this all along. But the bond hadn't broken. That was the cruelest part. It still hummed in her bones, still flickered when he came close, still ached when she dreamed. And now, in the present, she lay curled in dirt and shadow, her belly round and tense, her breathing shallow. The mark on her neck pulsed softly, still his, even now, even after all of it. She touched it once, lightly, like maybe this time it would burn. But it didn't. It just sat there, waiting. She closed her eyes and whispered to no one, "If you ever come looking for me again, I won't run this time. But I won't beg you to stay either." Because the next time she saw him, it wouldn't be as his Luna. It would be as the mother of the child he didn't deserve. The storm started just after nightfall. Not a clean storm. Not thunder and rain, but a quiet, bitter kind. The kind that creeps across the trees and sinks into your bones. The kind that makes even the wolves hide deeper in their dens. She had no den, only a rotted cabin tucked behind a curtain of pine, just beyond rogue border territory. The door barely hung on its hinges. The floor sagged with every step, but the roof held and it didn't smell like death, and that was more than she'd had for days. Raya collapsed beside the hearth, curled around her belly, and tried to forget that she was still bleeding, still hunted, still halfway marked. The pain had gotten worse. The contractions came like waves now, sharp, short, terrifying. Too early, too far. Her hand gripped the edge of a broken chair. She counted her breaths, counted again, tried not to cry. She wasn't ready. The baby wasn't ready. And the man who should have been there, the one who marked her, claimed her, then cast her aside. He was probably watching his Luna fall asleep with victory in her veins. Raya bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood. Something moved outside, fast, quiet. Her body stilled. One hand went for the blade she kept tucked under her boot, small, but silver-lined. The other wrapped tight around her stomach. "Don't let it be him," she prayed. "Let it be a bear, or death, or anything but him." The door creaked open, and there he was. Not Thorne, not a soldier, but a rogue. Tall, dirty, scar running from temple to jaw. One eye cloudy with an old wound, and in his hand, a bow, not drawn, but held like he didn't need to aim to kill. She didn't speak, didn't breathe. He stared at her. Then calmly, he stepped inside and shut the door behind him. They didn't speak for what felt like an hour. He didn't ask who she was. She didn't explain. They just sat across from each other, her breath shallow, his silent. The fire between them the only thing keeping the world from splitting open. Eventually, he nodded once toward her stomach.
You alone?
The question wasn't kind. It wasn't cruel either. It just was. Raya nodded. He didn't respond, just pulled something from his pack, dried meat, a canteen, a cloth wrap, and slid them across the floor. She didn't touch them. Not yet. Not until she could smell his intention. But there was no heat on him, no alpha presence, no hunger in the way he looked at her. If anything, he looked tired. She slept in shifts that night, knife still in hand. Once, she woke and found him by the door, keeping watch. Not looking at her, just listening. To the woods, the wind, the wrongness that followed every step of an alpha's army. By morning, the rogue was gone. So was half the meat, half the water. And in their place was a single pelt. Thick, clean, left by her side like an offering. She didn't smile, but her eyes burned. He returned the next night. No words. This time, he brought herbs. Root water, a broken map. He set them down, built the fire, and sat again. She didn't ask why. Because the truth was louder than anything they could say. She was not his enemy. And he was the first person in weeks who hadn't looked at her like she was broken or dangerous. The days blurred. He didn't touch her. Not once. Not even when the pain grew worse, and she bit down on screams in the cold, or when she curled against the pelt and whispered nonsense to the pup inside her. He watched, and stayed, and hunted nearby. Sometimes she caught him sleeping outside her door, curled like a sentinel beneath the snow-heavy branches. She never asked his name. He never asked hers. But the silence between them grew full, not empty. It was the fourth night when everything changed. She woke to the scent of smoke. Not fire, not his camp. Smoke laced with silver, soldiers, close, too close. She barely made it to her feet when he burst through the cabin, bow already drawn, face like stone. They're coming. How many? 3, maybe 4. Scouts. Her voice cracked. Thorne? The rogue didn't blink. Not yet, but they're his. She pressed a hand to her stomach. I can't run. I know. You should go. He looked at her for a long, brutal moment, then said, I won't. She didn't expect the rage that rose in her chest at that, not toward him, toward Thorne. Because if a half-wild rogue, no bond, no mark, no promise, could stand and choose her, what did it say about the man who left her to die? The scouts didn't make it past the clearing. The rogue was fast, brutal, unforgiving. And when he came back, blood on his hands and breath short, he simply asked, You ready to move? She nodded, even though she wasn't, even though her legs shook and her gut screamed and her soul still bled. Because there was no such thing as ready, not anymore. They made it deeper into the rogue lands, into the hollow caves carved by time and silence. He built her a fire, found her clean water, and when she finally collapsed again, this time not from fear, but from exhaustion and gratitude she'd never say aloud, he sat beside her, still not touching, but closer now. A presence, a shield, a maybe. She looked up at him through strands of sweat-matted hair and whispered, Why are you helping me? He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, Because I know what it's like to be hunted by the man who was supposed to protect you. She didn't sleep that night, but her body rested. Her wolf curled beneath her skin. The thorn mark pulsed, softly, not warning her, just reminding. He's still out there. He's still coming. And he's not coming for you. He's coming for the child. She was beginning to feel her ribs again. That was dangerous, because it meant the numbness was fading. The frost inside her chest where she'd buried everything was finally starting to melt. And once that dam cracked, she wasn't sure who she'd be on the other side of it. Raya sat in the mouth of the cave, knees to her chest, eyes watching the tree line where the rogue had vanished. He hunted in circles now. Not far, never gone long, always came back with something warm, meat, herbs, silence. Sometimes she caught him watching her belly like it scared him. Not the way Thorne had, not with calculation, with awe. like he couldn't believe it was real, like he'd never seen something grow out of love and pain all at once. It had been 7 nights since the attack. She didn't ask how many he killed. He didn't offer. But the air changed after that. The scent of death clung to the pines. Birds stopped singing, the trees listened harder. They were being watched. She felt it in her bones. He returned at dusk, boots muddy, coat soaked. She looked up, instinctively searching his face for injury, and that's when she noticed he wasn't alone. Behind him, bloodied, limping, half-conscious, was a scout, one of Thorne's. Raya's stomach dropped. The rogue shoved the man into the dirt like garbage, then met her gaze with a quiet calm that told her everything. This wasn't mercy. This was message retrieval. They tied him to a root post and waited for the fire to crackle down. He didn't struggle, didn't speak, just stared at her like she was less than nothing. She hated how familiar that stare felt. The rogue crouched in front of him, voice low, controlled, deadly. Talk. The scout spat blood. Kill me. It'll change nothing. The rogue said nothing, just reached for the blade on his hip and slid it under the man's chin. Raya stepped forward. Not to stop him, to know. What does Thorne want? The scout's eyes flicked to hers. And for a second, something like amusement twisted in his ruined mouth. You think he's coming for you? Silence. You think he's tearing through packs to bring you home? Raya's pulse spiked. The scout chuckled darkly. He wants the heir, that's all. No one breathed. He knows you're too broken to raise it right. Said so himself. Raya blinked once, then again. Slowly. The words didn't hit like a slap. They hit like cold, like her blood freezing in her veins. She stepped forward. The rogue didn't stop her. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She leaned in close until she could smell the rot on the scout's breath and whispered, Tell your alpha if he touches this child, I will skin him alive. Mark or no mark. Then she drove her knee into the scout's face and walked away before the scream finished leaving his throat. That night, she didn't speak. She just lay curled beside the fire, staring at the cave ceiling, one hand resting on her stomach as the baby shifted softly beneath her palm. Heir. That's what Thorne called it now. Not pup. Not our child. Heir. Like it was a thing to claim, a prize. The rogue didn't try to comfort her. He just sat close enough that she could feel his warmth. Not touching, not speaking, but there, present. And that was enough. More than Thorne had ever been. She sat up slowly. The cave light carved lines down her face that didn't used to be there. She looked at him. If something happens to me, will you protect him? The rogue didn't blink. Yes. Even if it means running from the alpha? Especially then. The thorn mark burned that night. Not from desire, not from longing, from rage. For the first time since she'd been marked, Raya didn't feel bound. She felt hunted. And something inside her finally snapped. At dawn, she sharpened her blade, wiped her skin clean with cold water and pine ash. She stood at the edge of the cave and whispered to the wind, Come for me, Thorne. I dare you. And somewhere, miles away, he felt it. Because bonds cut both ways. And now, she was the danger. She knew the moment the bond snapped awake again. Not a whisper this time. A scream. Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. The cave spun in slow circles. Her hands hit the dirt to steady herself, but the pain tore straight through her spine and dragged a raw cry out of her throat. Not the pup. Not now. She clutched her belly. It was happening. Too fast. Too soon. And he was coming. The rogue wasn't back yet. Of course he wasn't. Of all the moments for him to be gone, hunting, scouting, protecting her blindly, this was when the child chose to arrive. Raya crawled to the fire pit, breath broken, sweat beating at her temples. The cave spun again. She gritted her teeth and braced for another contraction, biting the inside of her cheek until blood filled her mouth. No, she gasped. Not yet. not alone. But she wasn't alone. Not anymore. She felt it again, the mark flaring hot under her skin. Not because it was near, because it was here. She heard the footsteps outside. Slow, heavy, familiar in the worst way. She didn't have to look up to know it was him. The air shifted. The scent wrapped around her before the silhouette even reached the doorway. Pine smoke. Midnight steel. Moon-touched blood. Thorne. Her wolf growled so loudly inside her that it echoed against her ribs. Her lips pulled back in a feral snarl. "Don't come any closer." He did, but slowly. He stepped into the cave as if it were sacred ground. Not dominant, not angry. Something else. Regret? No. It was heavier than that. He looked like a man watching the wreckage of everything he ever tried to protect, and knowing he was the one who lit the match. She wanted to stand, to face him, to spit in his face, but her body trembled. Her knees folded again. Her palms slapped the dirt. The baby was coming, and she didn't have time to hate him right now. He took another step. She lifted her knife. He paused. "Touch me," she hissed, "and I'll open your throat." His voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her laugh cracked like lightning. "You already did." Silence. Just the fire crackling, her ragged breath, the mark pulsing like a curse between them. Then, he knelt. Not beside her, not near, across the cave. Facing her, arms on his knees. Bowed head. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "Liar." "I thought the council chose your Luna for you," she spat, "or told you to mark someone else while I still bled from yours." He looked up at her, and for the first time she saw it. Not the alpha, not the soldier, just the man, and the guilt. "I couldn't claim the pup," he said. "Not then, not while they watched." "You didn't have to claim the pup," she snapped. "You just had to choose me." Another contraction hit. This time she couldn't stop the scream. Her body folded. The pain was white-hot, blinding. Thorne moved before he thought. Instinct, reflex, alpha-bonded. He was at her side, reaching, then freezing as she pressed the blade to his chest. She met his eyes through tears and sweat. "I'll die before I let you take this child." "I don't want to take him," he said, voice breaking. "I want to stay." Everything inside her fought to believe that. Everything that wasn't already too broken. But her body gave her no choice. The next wave hit like thunder, and the world went red. Later she would remember flashes, his hands cradling her shoulders, his voice coaxing her through every scream, his scent, not overpowering, but grounding. A heartbeat against her back, a whisper against her hair, "You're not alone." And when the final push came, when her voice shattered into silence, there was a cry, not hers, not his, but the baby's. Alive. Here. Real. She collapsed, chest heaving, body limp, tears flooding her cheeks, and the moment she looked up, she saw Thorne holding their child like he'd just found the last star in the sky. No one spoke for a long time, not even the pup, just the fire and breath and bond. Finally, he looked at her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said softly. "I just want to protect you both, even if it means standing outside the cave for the rest of my life." She stared at him, then at the baby, then at the moon above. The mark didn't flare this time. It pulsed, soft, steady. Not pain, not rage, something like quiet. She took the baby from him, held the child against her chest, then looked up. "Start with the truth," she whispered. "Every lie, every reason, from the night you marked me to the second you let me walk out that gate alone." He nodded once, and he told her. They didn't kiss, they didn't forget. But when the rogue returned, bleeding, panicked, thinking he was too late, he found her asleep. Not alone, not guarded, not broken, just asleep, with her child in her arms, and Thorne at her side, for the first time, not as alpha, but as a man who almost lost everything, and now had to fight to earn even a chance. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, her child was safe, and for once, so was she. If this story of betrayal, survival, and a bond that refused to break left you holding your breath. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your favorite moment. Was it when she ran? When he knelt? When their child cried for the first time? Because in this pack, love doesn't come easy. It's earned through blood, pain, and the choice to stay, even when it hurts. Stay strong, stay wild, and remember, even the alpha who failed you once might be the only one who knows how to fight for you now.